Hello there, and welcome to another Starfield video. In today's video, we're going to be looking at the best weapons at every class for every type of weapon. So we're going to be looking at the ballistic weapons, energy weapons, particle weapons, missile weapons, and suppressor weapons. So right here, we're going to be starting off with the ballistic weapons. So for the A tier, the best ballistic weapon in the game is the Dangan WRF autocannon from Shinigami. It's an A class, it's got 1200 range, 6.65 fire rate, it does 17.84 damage to hull, 5.25 damage to shield, 3 max power, adds plus 1 hull, plus 0.5 crew capacity. It requires you to have Starship rank 3. It requires you to be level 36 to unlock, and without any perks, it's 29,600. So this weapon, because for the kinetics or ballistics, we're going to be looking at hull, this has the highest DPS to hull out of all the A-class ballistics at a DPS of 38. So yeah, it's pretty nice. It's kind of annoying that a lot of these are going to be locked to higher levels, but I suppose that's the whole point of a role-playing game. You kind of got to grind. Now for the B class, slightly different here. So this is the Vanguard Hellfire autocannon. This one you can unlock pretty early on in the game. You just have to do the first initial 2 or 3 quests in the Vanguard quest line, the faction, to unlock it. Stat-wise, it's B class. It's got a range of 960. It's got a fire rate of 7.5. It has a hull damage of 18.89, shield damage of 5.25. It's got a 2 power requirement, hull of 1, 0.5 crew capacity. Without perks, it costs 2,750 and is available from level 1 with no requirements. And it has a hull DPS, which is what we're looking for, of 68, which is pretty high. This is the cool thing about this, the Vanguard weapons, is a lot of the Vanguard weapons are going to be on this list because they are the best. They're usually around B tier. And then for C tier, we have the MKE-9A Auto Gauss Gun from Ballistic Solutions Incorporated. C class, 1500 range, 4 fire rate, hull damage of 38.84, shield damage of 11.54, 4 power, 9 hull, gives 0.5 crew capacity. It requires Starship Design 4. It requires you to be level 57, and it also requires you to... or it doesn't require, sorry. It costs 44,200 without perks. So again, this is a pretty it's pretty high up there. It has a whole DPS of 37, which something you'll notice is as these kind of go up, they kind of get a little bit weaker, but DPS is obviously not everything. But it's kind of the main kind of source people go with. So I'm going to really quickly just jump to orbit now and just show you them all firing, just so you can kind of get a view of what they look like. Alright, so here we are at orbit. So it's going to be right to left. The right one, you can see it mounted there, is going to be the A class. The middle one is the B class, and the left one is the C class. So this is the A class, the Dangan WRF firing. So it's pretty much like a kind of a, well, it's an autocannon, as the name suggests. The middle weapon firing, this is going to be the Vanguard Hellfire. Oh, sorry, that's not the Vanguard Hellfire. This is the Vanguard Hellfire. So as you can just hear that fire rate, even comparing it to this one, it has that insane fire rate. And then this is going to be the C class, the MKE-9 Auto Gauss Gun. It's on the left there. So you can see that fires a lot slower, but still hits hard. Alright, next we're going to go and work on the lasers. Alright, so here we are with the pulse lasers. So much like with the ballistic being damage towards hull, the pulse lasers, you're looking damage to shields. So in the A class, the best A class pulse laser we have is the Reza 30 THZ IR pulse laser from Shinigami. It's A class, like it says. It's 960 range, 6.65 fire rate, does 6 hull damage, 19 shield damage, 4 max power, gives 1 hull, 0.5 crew capacity. It requires Starship Design 4. It costs 29,600 without any perks, and it requires you to be level 46. And it has a shield DPS of 32, which is pretty decent. And then for the B class, now just kind of clarify with this, I'm going only off of fixed weapons because, like, technically speaking, some of the turrets are like slightly better, but turrets are kind of hit and miss in that, like, they don't always hit, you know, when they have to. So yeah, for the, just in case anybody like sees like, oh, this turret is technically better, it is, but only on paper. In reality, you know, anything you can fire yourself, you're going to be more accurate. So for the B class, we have the Dragon 251P UV pulse laser. B class, 1200 range, 5 fire rate, 7 hull damage, 22 shield damage, max power of 3, gives 4 hull, 0.5 crew capacity, requires Starship Design 3, requires you to be level 36, and it costs 24,200, and it has a shield DPS of 37. And then finally, for the C class, we have the Shinigami Reza 300 PHC SX Pulse Laser. This is a Class C, 960 range, 4 fire rate, 10 hull damage, 34 shield damage, max power of 4, gives 7 hull, 0.5 crew capacity. It's Starship Design 2 perk required. It costs 29,000 without any perks, and it requires you to be level 51. And it has a shield DPS of 34. So we're going to again jump to orbit real quick, and I'm going to show you how they fire. Alright, so here we are. So yet again, the A class is going to be on the right, the B class is in the middle, and the C class on the left. So this is the Reza 30 firing. So it's got a very fast fire, as you can see, and it's got purple kind of tone to it, which is really cool. I'm assuming that's the whole like UV or the IR. So this is the second weapon firing. This is the Dragon. This is the B class. So that has a more beefier kind of firepower.
It's called a haiku.
Sorry, brief jump there because Cora was telling a haiku and that was very long-winded. So yeah, so the Dragon has like a lot slower. That was the Dragon. It's a lot slower, kind of, well, not that slow, but it sounds more beefier. And then for the final weapon, we have the C class, the Reza 300 PZX. So this is another Reza one. So there it is on the left. So that's same. It's the same styling as the A class, but it shoots a red laser, which is very, very cool, kind of Star Warsy. And it also seems to have a lot more rounds in the chamber in a weird way. Anyway, next we're going to be looking at particle weapons. All right, so here we are with the particle weapons. So first on the list, the best A class particle weapon is the Vanguard Obliterator Auto Projector, which this is also arguably one of the best, if not best, weapons in the game. So the name suggests you get it from the Vanguard questline. It has no requirements aside from that, and it's kind of cheap compared to some of the other ones. So it's A class, 3600 range, 6.65 fire rate. It has 11 damage to hull and shields, 2 power, 1 hull, 0.5 crew capacity. It costs 14,100 without the perks. And it has a hull and shield DPS of 37, so this thing is a beast. So next here, the B class, we have the PBO 175 Auto Helion Beam from Ballistic Solutions Incorporated. B class, 3600 range, 6 fire rate, 19 hull damage and shield damage, requires 3 power, gives 4 hull, plus 5 crew capacity. It requires Starship Design 4. It's 29,500 without the perks, and it requires you to be level 48. And it gives a whole DPS of 38 and a shield DPS of 38. So again, pretty decent, as they say. And then finally, for the C class, the best C class, we have the Obliterator 250 MEV Auto Alpha Beam from Lightsight. The C class, 3900 range, 4 fire rate, 29 hull and shield damage, 4 power, 6 hull, 0.5 crew capacity, requires Starship Design 3. It is 30,200 without the perks, and it requires level 51. And it has a shield and a hull DPS of 29. So interestingly, you're noticing a kind of a pattern here. Obviously, the A class one is like absolutely phenomenal, and it is the best of the best. Just because you can have so many of them. But technically out of the three, the B class is the best if you want to, like, if you just want the best, obviously the B class. But if you want, like, the best, obviously this is the best C, best A, best B, like I was saying. So we're going to jump up to orbit now and shoot them. Alright, so here we are in orbit. So we're going to be starting off with the best A class, which is the Vanguard weapon, the Obliterator. So they kind of fire in bursts, which is kind of interesting. So next is the best B class, which is the PBO 175 Auto Helion Beam. So that one sounds quite interesting. It's more like beefy and has like a metallic twang to it. It sounds a lot more aggressive. And then finally we have the Obliterator 250 Auto Beam. Now that sounds very, very cool. That kind of gives like the old school, the X-Wing cannons. So next, we are going to be looking at the Electromagnetic weapons. Alright, so here we are with the suppressors. Now, suppressors are a little different than most weapons because the DPS doesn't matter a whole lot. As you can see from the stats, what we're looking for is the electromagnetic damage. For anyone that doesn't know, suppressors work by, they can penetrate shields and target specific modules. So they're perfect for disabling a ship with minimal damage. So the best A-class one is the Suppaku 250 GC suppressor from Shinigami. It's an A-class, 960 range, 1.5 fire rate. It does 1 damage to hull and shields, which doesn't really matter. The lower the number, generally the better. It does 54 electromagnetic damage, requires 6 power, gives a hull of 2, 0.5 crew capacity, requires Starship Design 4. It costs 47,800 without perks, and it requires you to be level 51, which is, again, it's very kind of end game. Like, obviously, there's like alternatives you can get. If you're to say, like, if you're like level 10, you're not gonna have access to this. You gotta kind of work for it. But this is kind of meant more for, you've gotten to like level 50 plus, you're looking at what you should be working towards weapon wise. Anyway, so for the B class, we have another Suppaku, the Suppaku 600 GC suppressor, again from Shinigami. B class, 960 range, 1.25 fire rate, 1 hull damage and shield damage again, 55 electromagnetic damage, 6 max power, 5 hull, 0.5 crew capacity. Once again, requires Starship Design 4, and weirdly this one only requires you to be level 49, which is kind of interesting. And then it costs 36,000 without perks. It's kind of weird that the B class is like easier to unlock than the C class, or the A class rather. So you get the B before the A. Weird. And then for the C class, we have the Tatsu 501 EM suppressor from Shinigami once again. C class, 960 range, 0.80 fire rate, 1 damage to hull and shields, 108 electromagnetic damage, max power of 6, 8 hull, crew capacity of 0.5. It requires Starship Design 4. It costs 24,600 without perks, and it requires you to be level 60. So all in all, the suppressors kind of like a lot of these weapons when you like look at them and you see when you unlock them, specifically modules like 2, you can kind of, it makes you wonder like what was Bethesda's intention for, like, say, like progression with weapons. Like you unlock this first, the B first, and then after B you can go back to A. Like maybe they intended on, like, I don't know, A class being better. I don't know, weird. Anyway, next we're going to be looking at missiles. Oh, sorry, we're not going to be looking at missiles. Apologies. We're going to show these off first. I got ahead of myself. So we're going to jump to orbit real quick and show these firing, and then we'll look at missiles. Alright, so here we are up and about. So we're going to be, once again, A is on the right, B is on the middle, and C is on the left. So something that's quite interesting with these electromagnetic weapons is you'll see when I fire them. So we're gonna start off with the Suppressor 25GC. So it fires like a kind of a slug. It sounds like a kind of a railgun when it goes off, which makes sense because it's like EM damage. So you'd kind of expect it to have like a kind of an energy look to it, whereas it sounds and looks like kind of a projectile. When you give this max power, you can pretty much fire it indefinitely. You can see the fire right there. Next, we're going to be looking at the B class, which is the Suppressor 600. Again, same sound, slightly less fire rate. And then finally, we're going to be looking at the Tatsu 501. Yeah, you can see that fire. That fires a far larger slug. Now we're going to go check the missiles. All right, so here we are with the missiles, and this was a bit of a head turner. It's probably not the right word, because when I initially did my testing, like according to like stats that I was checking out, the best in every class was these boys, which I'll explain more in a minute. But when it comes to, you can't really use DPS necessarily because all of the missiles, for instance, have like a fire rate of 1. And even because initially I thought, okay, the Vanguard ones are going to be the best because they have a higher fire rate, because with most Vanguard weapons they are the best. But weirdly, I tested out a couple of different missiles with against this one just because this is supposedly the best. And even though the Vanguard has like a faster fire rate, the fire rate's not actually that much faster, and they fire the same amount of missiles. So anyway, yeah, if basically Bethesda's stats are confusing is what I'm trying to get at. So the best A-class missile in the game is the Atlatl 280A missile launcher from Lightsight. It is an A-class, 4800 range, 1 fire rate, 90.40 hull and shield damage, max power of 3, hull of 3, crew capacity 0.5, starship design 2, and it costs 10,900 without any perks, and it requires you to be level 25. See, this is where I was a bit confused, because this one, which is the best stats-wise, you get level 25, and it requires like starship design 2. But there's another missile you unlock, the Infiltrator, that you get at level 51, and it requires Starship Design 4, that you would assume, okay, you unlock it later, and it requires more perks, that would be better, but it's not better, which is weird. Again, I don't know, like, what, like, Bethesda's mentality was with the weapons. But anyway, so the B class, the best B class is, yet again, pretty much the same missile, but just the different version. This is the Atlatl 280B, so this is the 280. 280B, it's B class, 4800 range, 1 fire rate, 155.45 hull and shield damage, 4 max power, 3 hull, 0.5 crew capacity, starship design 3. It costs 22,800 without perks, and it requires you to be level 38. Again, kind of a weird one. Because like with the A, there is better ones technically according to the game, as in like, oh, you unlock this later. But this is on paper and in practice, this is the best B class. And then with the C class, again, the Atlatl 280C missile launcher, C class, 4800 range, 1 fire rate, 291.05, 4 power, 6 hull, 0.5 crew capacity, Starship Design 3, it requires you to be level 43 to unlock, and it costs 47,500 without perks. So we're going to quickly jump into space and showcase them firing. Alright, so here we are in space. So the A class, again, is on the right, the B class in the middle, and the C class is on the left. I'm just going to put max pips into all of these. So this is the 280A firing. So it can fire 6 missiles off. This is the 280B firing in the middle. Oh, that wasn't the... Yeah, no, that was the 280B, sorry. So that one can only fire 4 missiles in, like, one kind of salvo. And then we have the 280C on the left there. That can only fire 2 missiles. So, if you're kind of noticing what's happening here with these missiles, is they technically say they do more damage. And they do more damage per missile. But the issue is when you fire them, like, so when you jump from A to B to C, you're getting less missiles. So for instance, like I said with the A class, you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 missiles. With the B class, you get 1, 2, 3, 4. And then C, you get 2. So like, I mean, it makes sense in a kind of a, like from a, I suppose if you're going purely off of just single missile damage, obviously the C class is going to be better. But if you actually compare the amount of damage it does, like the A class being able to fire 6 missiles, and each of the missiles do 82 damage. So that's 492 damage, which, yeah, it's just weird how they've gone about it. Sorry, I kind of like, I was just double checking the maths in my head just to kind of confirm. Yeah, so it's just weird. It's like, you would kind of assume, like, as you go up the tiers, you'd kind of have access to the same sort of missiles, or even like maybe more missiles, but it seems like more is less. So yeah, I personally not really a huge fan of missiles, just because you have to, first you have to lock them like normal, and then you have to lock on with the missiles. And while they can be quite satisfying and they do good damage, they're a bit kind of, yeah. Finally, we specifically didn't cover turrets when we were doing this, because when it comes to ballistic and laser turrets, like for DPS... Oh, hold on now. There's going to be a pause here.
We live on a starship, Cora. Pets and starships don't always mix so well.
Aw, come on.
Sorry about that. Cora and her father are triggering. So yeah, so with the turrets and stuff, generally speaking, you don't want ballistic or you don't want energy turrets, because, well, as you're like fighting targets and stuff, if you're, say you're using energy weapons, once they strip the shields, they're going to be doing significantly less damage, so they're going to be ineffective. Whereas if you use ballistic, they're going to be ineffective to start off. So particles are the best. So I'm going to really quickly jump now and show you the best B class and C class particle turrets that I would recommend slapping on. If just on like your kind of I usually put them on my Y slot, because on controller Y is kind of a bit annoying to have to press multiple times, so you just have it there. So yeah, we'll be right back with the best turrets. All right, so here we are with the particle turrets. So sadly, like I was saying, there's no A class turrets, so we only have B and C. So for the B class particle turret, the best particle turret, the best turret in general, is this one here, the PBO-100 or PBO-100 auto neutron turret from Ballistic Solutions. B class, 3600 range, 5 fire rate, does 16 damage to hull and shields. 3 max power, gives 3 hull, 0.5 crew capacity, requires Starship Design 1. You unlock it at level 25, and it costs 16,600 without perks, and it has a hull and shield DPS of 27, which is pretty good. And then the best C class is the Obliterator 250 MEV Alpha turret from Lightsight, C class, 3,900 range, 1.5 fire rate, 86 hull and shield damage, 4 max power, 6 hull, 0.5 crew capacity, Starship Design 4, requires you to be level 60, and it costs 35,100 without perks. And it has 32 shield and hull damage. Interestingly, this is the best, technically the best C-class particle weapon, out of, like, stat-wise, going off DPS. But obviously, the reason I didn't include it is, one, it was a turret, and two, the reason I did, like I said, I didn't include turrets was because turrets can be very situational. So we're going to really quickly jump up into space and show these firing. It's going to be a little trickier. I'm going to have to engage in combat. Might be a bit illicit, but we'll be back. Alright, so it took me quite a while to find some vessels. But we did. So the first test, I've paused the game just because I'm about to attack them. It's like an encounter with some NPC friendlies and enemies. So I've got the B-class weapon powered up, and we're going to show it. So I'm going to focus on them, and you'll see it'll start to open up once we get into range. Locking, it takes a bit. It doesn't seem to be firing. So for some reason it doesn't want to fire, which is kind of interesting. Come on. See, this is why turrets, I didn't want to put the turret at the top of the list, because they're very situational. Like, I've powered the one on the right, and it should be shooting, but it doesn't want to. Come on. Okay.
Unknown vessel. Please stay safe out there.
So we're just gonna have to shoot at these guys. I'm gonna get hate for it, but never mind, I can't shoot them. Okay, we'll be back. I'm gonna try and find someone I can target. Okay, finally found some enemies and got the turrets working. So we got some of these boys here. I've got the beat power turret active for the C-class. Sorry, the C-class firing first. So as you can see there, it's trying its hardest to lock in. Sometimes it hits it quite well. See some of its shots miss. It has a little bit of tracking to it. And now we're going to turn this off, and we're going to put on the B-class one now. And I think I've been, what's going on? Where's my engine power? This one fires like a burst. See, it can lock. The cool thing is it'll lock targets you're not looking at, which is kind of nice. Obviously, if you lock, I believe it's more accurate. Yeah, it's more accurate if you lock.
So, I hear you've been making yourself pretty useful around the ship.
But on their own, as you can see, turrets are kind of hit and miss. Sometimes they can absolutely decimate, like you've seen there with the C-class, and then sometimes I'm going to turn on both just to kind of... So it seems like the slower the turrets fire, the more accurate they are, which kind of makes sense. If you make any, like, wild movements, it will miss. So see, if I'm, like, wobbling up and down, it has, like, a harder time hitting it further away. We'll just let it deal with this. But yeah, that was a review of all the weapons. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Like I said, there could be some, like, kind of regarding, like, the missiles specifically, but there also could be others where, like, they're quite situational. Because you may prefer using, say, higher power weapons or lower power weapons, but I was going purely off of the maximum amount of damage they could do per second if you were using, like, say, the maximum amount you could have. So yeah, let me know in the comments what you guys think. What's your usual loadout? I know most people tend to just run the Vanguard weapons because they're pretty OP. If you are looking to find these weapons, you can find most of them on either Aquila or New Atlantis, with the Vanguard weapons specifically going, you're going to need to go to New Atlantis. But as always, thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget to subscribe if you like this content, and check out some of my other videos if you don't mind. I have a lot of reviews of the ships in the game. Bye-bye.